Hello there, everyone, and welcome in to a special edition of the RTI and VR2 Recruiting Podcast. We're getting you ready for Tennessee's National Signing Day on Wednesday, February 5th. We're recording this on a Tuesday afternoon, kind of early Tuesday evening. I am Nathaniel Rutherford, and I am joined by Matt Ray of VR2. No Brandon with us, but we were hoping he will chime in. I asked him for his predictions on some of Tennessee's targets, so hopefully he will chime in on our group message here as we're recording this, and how we can fill you in on what he has to say. But unfortunately, the timing just didn't work out for us all three to get on here, but we should hopefully all three be able to be on later this week to do a recap of Tennessee's National Signing Day. And Matt, I think we talked about it last podcast, a month ago or so, 3 weeks ago or so. We were talking about, we thought this is going to be a boring National Signing Day. And it's not going to still be a big, waiting for 5 or 6 kids to make an announcement. It's not going to be like what it was for Tennessee. You think back to that 2018 National Signing Day for the 2018 class when you're waiting on guys like Elijah Griffin and Isaac Taylor Stewart and I think Jacob Copeland as well. You were waiting on 4, 5, 6 big names even after that first early signing period. It's not going to be like that, but we do have some actual drama and waiting to see what happens for Tennessee on National Signing Day this year. We're thinking we'd maybe have to watch one name. We're going to be watching at least 2, and we'll see if a third one does anything, and we'll talk about him first, and that third one being, of course, the most talked about name on Tennessee's recruiting board right now, and that is 5-star running back Zach Evans. Matt, you shared a good, interesting update on him on the Insider Notes on VR2, and if you guys haven't signed up for that, you definitely should. It's only, $3 a month? I mean, that's a cup of coffee a month, or even less than that, you're giving up just to get some good content, some good quality info from Matt and the guys over at VR2. But you had a good update on him in there. I don't think we're going to see anything from him tomorrow or on Wednesday. It doesn't feel like he's going to make any sort of commitment, any sort of announcement. It feels like he's still wanting to take his last official visit he has left. So what's kind of the latest on Evans, and do you think we're going to see anything tomorrow? I don't think so, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I don't think that we'll see anything tomorrow. It wouldn't surprise me if we did, but I mean, you just hear so much out of Evans's camp. I mean, Friday night, I guess it was. I think that's when I was talking to you, Nathaniel. I was informed by his camp that he was in Tennessee on a visit. That wasn't the case. He was in Tennessee. He was in Nashville training. He trains with NPA, National Playmakers Academy. But he obviously wasn't on a visit. I was able to confirm that a little later on. But his family, they thought he was on a visit at Tennessee. All they knew was he was in Tennessee, and that was that. But I mean, it won't surprise me if Evans makes a decision tomorrow, and it will not surprise me if he pushes it back. I mean, I don't think he knows what he's going to do at this point. And when you look at it, how much longer is this process going to go? He's got one official visit left. The word was last week was that he called USC and asked to get in for an official visit, and they weren't going to entertain that. They're going after an all-purpose back by the name of Michael Drennan. Mm-hmm. There was talks that Oregon could get in. That didn't happen. The latest rumor regarding Evans that we've heard is that he's, back in contact with Florida. But, a week and a half ago, I heard that Florida came out for an in-home talk with him. They didn't line up on, the two parties didn't line up on what they, saw and thought that they would mesh very well, and that ended that. But then Evans called Florida, wanted them to come back out for an in-home. They didn't come. So I'm not sure where it's going to go. I think he may keep his options open, but at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me if he doesn't make some kind of announcement. I'm not really sure what will happen with him. It's going to be very interesting to see, though.
Yeah, and once again with him, he can commit to school all he wants to, but he can't actually sign a national letter of intent because he already signed one NLI with Georgia, so now he can't do another one because that one got voided and he got released from it. So he can't actually sign another one and be bound to a school tomorrow. Like the only way, even if he commits to a school and signs a financial aid agreement, or I don't know that a school could get him in and get him into a semester halfway through already at this point, or not halfway through, but a month into a semester already, and that count. I don't know what the rules would be for that, but it's very, very likely that we're still talking about here on the podcast. We're still talking about Zach Evans in April, May, maybe even June at this point. So, he's going to be interesting. You mentioned several schools there that, kind of the thought from him and his camp has been that some schools he's reaching out to. I still think, to me, Tennessee and Ole Miss are the two schools that I think have the front two seats for him. He's been a kid who doesn't give a whole lot away. He doesn't have that, you've mentioned before on this podcast, you mentioned in the insider notes you guys did, Malachi Weidman's kind of been notorious for having kind of that visit high when he goes out to school and feeling really high on a school after he visits. Evans has not really been that way. He's not been a kid that's gone on a visit and, you feel like you immediately have a lead after he's gone on the visit for the school. He's played things pretty close to the chest. He's a guy that, he's been dramatic, but it's not been because I don't know that he's really enjoying the spotlight necessarily. He's not been a guy who's been enjoying the recruiting process, I would say. It's just been kind of bizarre. But I'm under the impression that, unless, like you said, Florida or someone kind of gets involved again, I don't think Texas A&M is going to, but unless someone else gets involved, I'm under the belief that Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, I think, are going to be Tennessee's biggest competition for him, at least as of right now, moving between now and I guess early summer.
Yeah, I would say so as well. I think it's going to be I think both of those schools are in a position that they can kind of try to wait him out. You look at Kiffin and, he's done a pretty nice job of piecing his class together and could make a push into the top 20. And if you go get a kid like that, early on, you make a statement. You're back in the SEC, and it's the type of recruiting that you expect from Lane Kiffin. So, I don't expect Ole Miss to go anywhere in this one. Again, you hear so much with, is he a package deal with Brady Ward? Well, Brady Ward doesn't appear to be a take at Ole Miss right now. Ole Miss is recruiting really well. So what are they going to have number-wise? Because you have to think at the same time, Lane wants to get some guys that fit his system. So how long do you drag out for Evans if you finish extremely well here in February? And do you pursue the transfer? They already pursued the transfer portal a couple of times, I believe, but do you pursue some grad transfers that can come in and make an immediate impact for you? It's going to be a real number crunch, and Evans could play his way out of a spot. If he's not careful. As crazy as that sounds, I think there's still a lot of schools involved, but he could play his way out of a spot at some big schools if he doesn't do something tomorrow. And I think that's where you hear, even though it's not binding, I think that's where you hear that he may make a decision tomorrow. I think that's where that may stem from, but we'll see. I really truly don't expect anything tomorrow, but at the same time, I don't think anybody knows. So
yeah. He has kind of, you look at his timeline, he kind of has played his way out of some opportunities. He's not going to be able to go to Georgia now if he wanted to. Alabama has, pushed off on him, and so they're not pursuing him. Like you said, another school doesn't really seem to have any other room for him, so he kind of has played himself out of chances at other schools. But we've, Ben McKee and I, who do the regular RTI podcast here, and who's my staff writer at RTI, in last week's mailbag, I believe it was, we were asked, where's the breaking point for the staff? When do they decide? This was fresh off the news that the meeting in Houston didn't work out when Pruitt and them were over there to look at some 2021 kids. We were asked, what's kind of the breaking point with the staff? Do we think that there's a point where Tennessee just stops pursuing them, and it doesn't become too much of a headache? And I don't think so. I think unless he truly eliminates Tennessee, or if he does something that really offends Tennessee, like if he really did blow off Tennessee to meet up or whatever, which we don't think that's what actually happened. It just was kind of a communication issue and everything, timing issue that didn't work out when Pruitt and them were down there. But barring him, telling off Tennessee, barring him just kind of closing things down with Tennessee, it doesn't really hurt Tennessee to keep pushing for him. They have nothing to lose here. He's not like a kid that's been in any kind of legal trouble. It's not going to be a case where you take him in and you're bringing a bunch of attention to say, oh, this kid's, he's done this, he's done that off the field, he's all this different stuff that other guys have taken also before with other recruiting classes and stuff. It's not like that. It's just been kind of a headache, but it's not been a legal headache. So with Tennessee in the room they have, especially if they miss out on one of Beckwith and Wideman, if they only get, let's say they only get Beckwith, they will definitely have a room to play with there. But even if they do get both Beckwith and Wideman, they still have the opportunity to push back, at Velas Jones Jr. or Cade Mays probably Jones since he's a grad transfer. They have a chance to back count one of those guys to the 21 class. They have the room. I mean, unless they feel like they have a better chance of getting a grad transfer at a position of need between now and April or May, and Evans still hasn't made up his mind and still doesn't know what he's going to do. And in that case, I think that might be the only way I see Tennessee kind of backing off, is if either he just blatantly tells them he's done and that he doesn't want to go to Tennessee, or if it's getting into after spring practices are done and guys have put their names in the transfer portal, and there's like there's a good pass rusher or good defensive lineman or someone out there that Tennessee really wants and needs, and they decide to use his spot for that. That's the only way I see Tennessee backing off of him at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree with that too. I mean, Jeremy Pruitt played the long game with Bryce Thompson, and it really paid off.
Yeah.
I mean, he was an immediate impact guy. So I think Tennessee can be in it for the long haul. And like you said, if it will take Evans working his way out of Tennessee, so we'll see what happens. But
yeah, we'll see. Evans is going to be the one that, like I said, even if he does do something tomorrow, it's not binding. So we'll have all kinds of drama with him for the next couple months or so. And like I said, we're not going to know to the summer when he actually arrives somewhere on campus and is enrolled in classes for the. Like I said, I don't know. Maybe he can do that and come in middle of the semester essentially and do that. I don't know if that would be allowed and how much ground he'd have to make up, and him being probably only a part-time student at that point. So I don't know what that would do. But as you've said, I mean, he's graduated. His grades aren't an issue. It's not like he's had a bunch of academic issues or anything like that either. So that's not a concern for Evans either. So all the concerns with him has just been the timing. What does he want to do? His camp seems kind of not bad. It just I don't know. It's been dramatic, but it's not been a thing that is going to hurt Tennessee if they keep going after him. We got two other guys to talk about here in the 2020 class, so let's move on to Tennessee's two targets who we know are for sure going to be doing something on Wednesday. That's Malachi Weidman and D. Beckwith, both 4-star targets for Tennessee. Let's talk about Wideman first. We believe, you and I were talking before we hit record here, we believe he's going to be announcing sometime around lunchtime. We've heard noon, we've heard 1 Eastern. It's sometime around lunchtime, kind of noon to 1 Eastern time or so, when we believe Wideman is going to be announcing what he's going to do. You've mentioned before, Matt, that he hasn't spent a lot of time with his finalists. I don't really even know who technically his finalists are at this point. I guess Florida State's one of them, Tennessee's one of them, Ole Miss and Oregon would be the ones I'd have to choose. Again, to me, like I said with Evans, I think this feels a lot like a Tennessee-Ole Miss battle, and Ole Miss, I don't know that I'd say things are trending their direction, but man, it feels like the Rebels kind of have a little bit of a more momentum right now than Tennessee. But Tennessee did just have the in-home visit, and that didn't seem to go well. But like you said, Wideman's a guy that has that visit high when he comes off official visits to schools. He seemed to really love his trip to Tennessee. You saw a lot of momentum going towards Tennessee's way. I don't remember who it was. It was one of the big, I think it was 247's national, their director of scouting, who Barton Simmons, I believe that's who it is. I don't remember now, but whoever it was, I wrote about it at the time, I think a week or two ago, that he predicted Wideman to flip to Tennessee, but that was before he came and visited Ole Miss, and now it seems like Ole Miss is definitely right in the thick of things for him. Let's go ahead and share our predictions for him, and then we'll talk about kind of why we think that. So, Matt, you've probably got a little bit more information on this than I do. I'll let you share your prediction first. What do you think Wideman ends up doing when he announces his commitment sometime on the afternoon on Wednesday?
I think when I've talked about this before, but I think that Lane Kiffin's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, without a doubt, you see how he's been able to finish. He's definitely going to make a compelling pitch to Wideman. I think when you look at Wideman, you can show him what you lost at Tennessee. Mm-hmm. Show him the direction you're going with the offense. Obviously, basketball is a factor for him. I think he'll get a chance there at Tennessee. I don't believe he holds an offer. But, Tennessee's basketball program should be really high, the next couple of years with Rick Barnes recruiting at the level he has, bringing in a really solid class next year. So, that's going to be something fun to be a part of. You got Tennessee. Jeremy Pruitt's gained some stability coming off an 8-5 season. The Vols got in home. Now, Wideman has been silent. I'm talking cricket silence. That's all you can hear. But I feel I feel more optimistic about Tennessee in this one, and that's just, I said for weeks Beckwith was a coin flip, and when we pick for Beckwith in a minute, I'm going to pick Tennessee. But and I feel a lot more comfortable about Beckwith at this point than I do about Wideman.
Yes,
I actually feel a lot better about Beckwith at this point after wrapping up my final conversation with him yesterday. I think Tennessee is going to – I think they did enough. I think they did enough there. But, Wideman, they got the official visit. They got the in-home. They got to spend time with his family, on more than one occasion. So I think they have that working in their favor. If Oregon's a factor, which they were at one point, they've got distance working in their factor. Tennessee's the closest school to home for him outside of Florida State. And they're still 10 hours away from home. So distance isn't going to be that big of a factor, but I think they've got Oregon beat. Now, Ole Miss is in about the 11-hour range. But Tennessee has a lot of compelling pitches to make to Wideman on how that he can make an immediate impact. And then Chris Winke's been huge in this one. I mean, he's a guy that's in the area. I think he's played a big part of it. And what guy better than when it started out? For the longest time, it was Tennessee and Florida State. Ole Miss wasn't a factor. Kind of Tennessee and Florida State. Can Tennessee flip this kid from Florida State? But what better person to let Wideman talk about where the Florida State program's been and where it is now, and where the Tennessee program has been and where it is now, and how it's they're a little bit on the other end of the spectrum. I think Winke may be able to win this one, but it's going to be interesting. I think his announcement is going to be Jordan Birch. Obviously, he's a 5-star defensive end. For those of you that follow recruiting, he shocked everybody when he picked South Carolina. I think his announcement will be exciting. And if Evans announces, that'll be exciting. But, one with a lot of anticipation around it is Wideman. And I think he's going to surprise some people either way he goes. I think there's going to be some coaching staff surprised. I think there's going to be some fan bases surprised. And that's if he goes to Tennessee, if he goes to Ole Miss, he goes to Oregon. So, or he could stay home. I mean, sometimes the easiest thing to do if you don't know is stay home. So we'll see what happens there. But right now I like Tennessee's chances. We're 18 hours away from when he's expecting an announcement, I guess. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think Tennessee did all they could do. I think they made a compelling pitch, and you're just going to have to see if it's enough now. But I do like the Vols right now.
I look at Ole Miss's class, and right now they currently do not have a wide receiver committed to them. And that was because you saw Chris Abrams-Drain decommit from them in kind of late January. Then he ended up committing to Missouri, which I thought was interesting. And then Jacob Horn just recently decommitted for them as well in late January. But then his is a case where I don't know that he actually he plays in Tupelo. I don't know that his stock took the direction that Ole Miss is kind of hoping for. He's taking an official visit to Texas State, and it kind of seems like Texas State might be the team he's going to sign with. So, his just might be a case of they let him go because they're trying to make room for someone else. But they don't currently have a wide receiver, a projected wide receiver at least, committed to them in this class. And I look at also Ole Miss's offense last year. And while I think John Reese Plumlee is a really good athlete, he's probably the best runner of any of the quarterbacks in the SEC up for next season. I think he's got a really high potential, really high ceiling. Not the world's best passer. He didn't pass the ball a whole lot. Ole Miss as a team didn't pass the ball a ton last year, even with Matt Corral in there whenever he was playing. Their leading receiver, Elijah Moore, 67 catches, 850 yards, 6 touchdowns. No other receiver on that team last season had more than 13 catches. Your second leading receiver was your running back, and Jared Ely. He had 20 catches. So, I mean, you're looking at an offense that was pretty one-dimensional. I think Wideman sees a path potentially for playing time at both schools pretty early on. But at the same time, like I said, while I think Plumlee's a really good quarterback, or at least a good runner, good athlete, I don't know how good of a passer he is. If I'm Tennessee, I'm selling really hard that even if Harrison Bailey is not your starter in 2020, which we've all talked about here on the podcast, we think it could be a chance he is starting for Tennessee in 2020. Even if he's not, Harrison Bailey is a much better passer of the football. I don't know about athlete, I don't know about anything else, but he's just watching film, a much better passer of the football than what you're going to have with John Rice Plumlee. And like I said, I think Rice Plumlee is good, and Lane Kiffin obviously is a good offensive mind, but it means like Tennessee's slacking. They have Jim Chaney as their offensive mind, and as you said, Chris Winkie has been kind of pivotal in this too. And I think Tennessee has, with T. Martin, whether or not he's here after 2020 or not, but T. Martin, in my opinion, is one of the best wide receiver coaches in all of college football. Him and Jay Graham, I think, are two of their best coaches at their respective positions in all of college football. So if I'm Wideman, like you said, I feel less confident, which is funny. I felt more confident about him than Beckwith about a week ago. But like you said, now I feel more confident about Beckwith than I do Wideman. And right now, if I had to, quote unquote, cast a crystal ball, it would be cloudy. But I'm gonna go, man. I'm gonna say Ole Miss, but I only like 51 to 49%. I don't think he sticks with Florida State. I don't think he goes to Oregon. I think he wants to stay, kind of in the southeast area, a little bit closer to home. Obviously, Florida State's the closest one, and Tennessee and Ole Miss aren't exactly super close, but you do have, flights to Knoxville. You can get to, or at least Nashville, and drive over there. And I'm not sure what the flight situation is to Oxford or anything like that, but they're not like they're super far. Oregon, I think, it's too far for him. I would be stunned if he ended up going to Oregon, because I think he wants to be at least a little bit closer to home than that. I'm going to say 51-49 Ole Miss, but that could change anytime between now and tomorrow. And I don't feel great about that prediction. He could very easily end up at Tennessee and sign with them. And like you said, I think he's going to surprise some people no matter what he does. And watch, with our luck and with the way things go, he's just going to pick some random fourth team that we haven't even thought about, or fifth team we haven't even thought about. But I don't think so, but we'll see. Tennessee did, they've done a lot there. They've done a really good job with Wideman. They've pitched as well as they can, I think, for him, especially for being a guy that, wasn't really on our radar back in the early signing period. He kind of just jumped on the radar, at least for fans and for media, kind of in January. He wasn't a guy that we were talking a whole lot about, or I think at all, like in November and December. So he just kind of all of a sudden, once you had that Florida State head coaching position change and everything like that kind of opened the door a little bit. And then you get him on a visit, and we're all thinking, he's just coming to visit. It's kind of cool. But then Tennessee really gets momentum, and looks like there's a legit chance. So he's a guy that, a month ago weren't really talking about him hardly. And then now all of a sudden Tennessee has a really legitimate shot at getting him. But Matt, the third person, the one who's actually going to be announcing first on Wednesday, we're thinking sometime between 9 and 10 a.m. There's been people saying 9:30. There's been people saying 10 o'clock. Just sometime kind of early in the morning Eastern time, because he's on Central time over in Alabama. So just sometime kind of early when that school starts up, and he's not going to be the only one announcing. Going to have a few other athletes, making their decisions that day. So he'll probably be the one that goes last. But sometime between 9 and 10 a.m. is when Beckwith is supposed to be announcing where he's going to be going. And Matt, I'm with you. I think with Larry Scott, I don't think it's been officially announced yet, but Larry Scott being his primary recruiter at Florida, him leaving to take that head coaching position at, I think it's Howard, the Division II school, with Tennessee, I think, doing a really good job of describing, pitching to him what he can play on offense in Jim Chaney's system. With him being back in Knoxville this past weekend, people saw the picture he posted on Instagram of the location of him being in Knoxville. I don't think he was visiting coaches or anything like that, but he sure as heck wasn't just here by himself and just kind of walking around downtown Knoxville by himself. I think Tennessee's done enough in this case to where it would actually legitimately at this point surprise me if Tennessee isn't his pick on Wednesday morning.
Yeah, it would be too. You've got, you start talking about him being back in Knoxville this weekend, and, it's 4-hour, 30-minute trip from Florence, which gave him the ability to come up here with his brother, which is what he did, see the town, get a feel for the place. Might have hung out with some players that he's known or got to meet or whatever. You never know what happened, but it wasn't in any kind of visit capacity, more just a chance to look around. He doesn't have that luxury when you're coming to Gainesville. It's 9 hours one way, whereas it's a 9-hour round trip to Florence. I talked about this before. There's a lot of pro Tennessee in his camp. His brother's committed as a preferred walk-on. I think Florida did a really good job losing Larry Scott. Like you said, it's not official, but pretty cut and dry. I think that's going to hurt. And most of the time, your camp's going to win out, especially when distance is involved and is a factor. Now, talking to him last night, still up in the air, enter indecision mode. It didn't bother him a whole lot, but you just get the feel that from D, who's a quiet kid, not few words here and there, but that's just kind of the way he is. But just talking to him last night, the process has really wore on him. His family's been a big factor. I think the Vols are going to win out tomorrow, and they have really big plans for D. Beckwith.
Yeah,
you're talking about a kid who's added some really good weight, who they looked at in camp as a quarterback, and then they reevaluated, and they see so many things that they can do with him. And I believe it was Dan Harrelson who wrote an article today, maybe, or yesterday. He interviewed Beckwith's coach from Florence High School and said that he believed that he could be like a Jawan Jennings if he come to Tennessee, or a Taysom Hill.
Yep, I was just seeing that as I was looking up stuff about D. Beckwith.
That's the perfect comparison. Difference is he's faster than both of those guys handily.
He is.
D. Beckwith has another gear, and this is a kid that maybe he's not quite as polished as some guys you see playing a little bit of Northern Alabama football. Still very competitive ball, but maybe he's not quite as polished, but just a raw, physical athlete that has so much untapped potential. So, I think Tennessee feels like they're getting a gem when they get him, and I think they're going to win out tomorrow. So my predictions for the Vols.
Do you think with Beckwith, a lot's been made about his potential kind of as a basketball player too, and I guess you mentioned Wideman in basketball. Do you think Beckwith gets a look at Tennessee in basketball, because he definitely does hold a quote unquote offer from Tennessee in basketball? Do you think there's anything there? Do you think Rick Barnes tries to use in basketball? Do you think Pruitt will let it? Because there's talk about Trevon Flowers, or I think Brandon Davis, or some of these other guys that they had signed playing baseball and stuff like that. And to my knowledge, that hasn't come to fruition. Do you think there's going to be anything with Beckwith playing basketball? Because that does seem to be a lot more important to him than it does to Wideman.
Oh, it seems like a big factor. And I mean, Wideman's a middle of the road 4-star. That has some legitimate offers to play basketball. It seems to be a lot bigger with D. He really wanted to spend some time around that basketball program, but he's heard a lot of things about that basketball program. He's watched Lamonte Turner come in and build that up, and that's something that Lamonte's his cousin. That's something that family has watched and been excited about, and I think that's something that if he chooses Tennessee, he wants to be a part of in some capacity. And I think that plays a big role for him. I'm not sure how big of a look he'll get, because I think he's going to see a lot of time playing on the football field. It's crazy. He may not see that many snaps, but I think he's going to see action in every game in a variety of roles. As a decoy, special teams. He's going to be involved on special teams. He's going to be involved in so many different ways, because he's just a guy 6'5", 215 pounds, 4'5", 40, can cover on special teams, can line up at tight end, can play at, I guess, it's a variation of the H-back role. So I think he's going to see a lot of time on the football field. I'm not sure he's going to have a whole lot of time for basketball. And by the time they get done
really
packing a little, yeah, it is. It's really hard to do that. And by the time they get done packing a little bit more weight on him, he may say, "Man, it was tough adding this weight and staying in shape. I don't want to run it all off in basketball." Mm-hmm. So, we'll see what happens, but I don't expect him to see that much time on the basketball side of things.
I don't either. It's just in this day and age with how much people put into football. I mean, the only one I can think of recently who did it was the Ellington kid over at South Carolina. He played both basketball and football for South Carolina. That's almost been like 10 years ago. That was back when Bruce Pearl was still head coach for Tennessee, I believe. So I mean, that's been a while, and he wasn't like he was ridiculously successful at either one. He was it wasn't bad, but it's hard to do, and I'm struggling to think of guys who do it at a high level in Power 5. It's maybe something you could do at a smaller school, like if he'd gone to UAB or something like that, where he has an offer to legitimately play basketball at, for sure.
Yeah.
I think he could have maybe done it there, but at Tennessee, at Florida, I don't know. But we do know that he has met with Rick Barnes, and that was part of part of Tennessee's pitch to him was they got to meet Rick Barnes, they got to talk with the staff there, and got to meet with the team and everything. So they're using that as a recruiting tool, but we'll see. For more notes here, talking about him being used as Juwan Jennings and Taysom Hill, and like you said, he's faster than both those guys. Taysom Hill, in his 1,500 years at BYU he played at, he was there for I think 6 years or 5 years, excuse me, because he had an injury in 2015. But he was there for 5 years. He totaled just under 7,000 passing yards, 43 touchdowns, and then he ran the ball for just under 3,000 yards and 32 touchdowns. So he ended up totaling about 9,000 or so total yards from scrimmage as a just as an all-around player. So he had 1 year, that 2013 season at BYU, where he threw for almost 3,000 yards. He ran for 1,300 yards. He threw for 19 touchdowns and ran for 10. So, I don't expect, obviously, D. Beckwith to be starting at quarterback for Tennessee like Taysom Hill was, and Juwan Jennings didn't start at quarterback for Tennessee, but, well, actually he did. He started one game for Tennessee at quarterback. But, he was a guy that, like you said, he was a versatile guy who they used in a lot of different ways, and I expect, Beckwith, who has a big body, who I don't, has a little raw at tight end, but he's a guy who can do a lot of different things. He's the only one I feel great about Tennessee getting tomorrow, and like I said, I would actually be genuinely surprised if they don't get him. We'll see about Wideman. I think Tennessee has a good chance of getting Wideman, but I also just feel like Ole Miss has done a lot of work there, and then like we both have said, Zach Evans is. We'll see, but that's not going to happen anytime. If it does happen, it's not going to be binding, so it doesn't really matter. But are there any other names? We both have mentioned the fact that if Tennessee does miss on someone, they'll probably look at the grad transfer route. Is there anyone else in the actual 2020 class that you should tell Vol fans to keep an eye on and see if Tennessee misses on Wideman, that they might look and pursue? Because I know Dylan Spencer's a guy we brought up before. I don't see him coming to Tennessee at this point, and obviously Lai McConkey committed to Georgia over the weekend, so he's off the board. So is there any other names to keep an eye on for Tennessee if they don't get Wideman?
I don't really expect Tennessee to force anything as far as that goes. They're at a point with this class, and it's a very good class from top to bottom. If they whiff all the way around tomorrow, I think they just explore the grad transfer market and see what's out there after the spring. I don't think they have to rush or force anything. There's not any real names out there, which is, when we were talking about it before, was why I was like, man, this is going to be a boring signing day. And at that point, I think we were talking about, Jay Hardy being the biggest announcement at the time, but we all know how that turned out. But I mean, I really can't think of anybody that they would circle back to. I don't think Dylan Spencer will be a part of this class. It was going to take a lot for him to be a part anyways, and then when other offers started coming in, it wasn't in the cards. So I would be surprised if Tennessee circles back to anybody and there's any unexpected names that pop up tomorrow.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think it's going to be anything unexpected, and if, like I said, they do miss on Wideman, and I don't think they'll miss on Beckwith, but if they do miss on both those especially, I think the only thing you're going to see them do is go after grad transfers. And like I said, I think that's a lot, besides Zach Evans saying, just telling Tennessee bye and that I'm no longer interested. I think the only other way they back off him is if a guy gets on the transfer market, whether it's a grad transfer or regular transfer or whatever, and it's just a guy that they feel like they absolutely need at a because running back's not a big position of need. I think Evans would be definitely an instant impact player, but you have guys in the backfield you feel comfortable at least playing and that can do things for you. But Tennessee doesn't have a bona fide pass rusher. They don't have they have some good defensive linemen, and I think the job Tracy Rocker did this past season was great. But if you have a guy like another Aubrey Solomon out there, for example, that you want to go grab on the transfer market, or a pass rusher who you want to go to grab on the transfer market, or heck, a tight end you want to grab, because I know Beckwith obviously they want to build the tight end, but if you have a guy who we mentioned before here, the UCLA kid, I don't know that that'll be interesting to kind of see what happens with him between now and I guess the next few months or so, because he doesn't have to sign or anything like that tomorrow. But we'll kind of see what happens there. But yeah, I think that'll about do it here for our preview for Tennessee and the earliest signing period, or earliest signing period. National Signing Day on Wednesday. Like I said, look for D. Beckwith to make some sort of announcement between 9 and 10 Eastern, so 8 to 9 Central time for him. Look for Malachi Weidman to announce sometime between noon to 1 or so, just kind of around lunchtime on Wednesday. Probably not Zach Evans on anything, but we won't know. We'll have for sure covered. But Matt, you guys are going to have a live stream of D. Beckwith, so whenever he does go live, you guys will be down there. So you talk about the coverage you guys are going to have tomorrow, and obviously we'll have all kind of coverage on RocketTopInsider.com too. We'll talk about the live streams you guys, stuff you guys will have, and kind of what else you'll have going on for National Signing Day.
So yeah, Brandon will be there for D. Beckwith, and then obviously we'll be watching. We'll be watching, what happens with Malachi Weidman. Beckwith just confirmed that his time is for 8:15 Central Time. Okay. So that'll be early on in the day. So we'll see some fireworks early on, and then if Tennessee misses on Beckwith, they have the rest of the day to circle back to somebody that if they think they can. So Beckwith will be it for us tomorrow. Haven't heard anything confirming anything out of Zach Evans' camp. So we'll be there for Beckwith, and then we'll start, a school tour. Probably the third week of February. Elite Georgia Showcase is this upcoming weekend on Sunday. A lot of the top prospects from the state of Georgia for 3 classes will be there. So we'll be down at that, and then the opening is later this month. From what I've been told, the Elite 11 regional is set for Atlanta on February 29th, the last day of the month, and I would imagine that the regional will be that day too. So it's going to be at Carrollton High School. It's going to be nice. It's going to be in the indoor facility. So outside of that, there's a few camps, but it won't be anything really. You have the Atlanta Under Armour camp, the Atlanta opening, and then the Nashville opening is in May. So, it'll still be part of a school tour at that point, and spring ball will be starting up, around the end of the month of March, I guess. So, it's getting back time for football again.
It never really ends, does it?
It doesn't.
I guess summer is the only time it ends, but then you have camps and stuff for recruiting, so you don't have like stuff going on with the actual team in college. But recruiting is kind of the big time over the summer, so it never really ends for football. We kind of have a little bit of a dead period there after the early signing period, and then up until January is kind of the only time it's a little dead. And that's the holidays and stuff, so it's nice that there's a little bit of downtime, but football doesn't really there's not really a break there. So basketball's getting to the same point where there's not really a break with that either. So, but yeah, we'll have all the coverage on VR2.site, RocketTopInsider.com, and like I said, we'll retweet it. We'll have it out there for you guys when they post it. They're at _VR2_ on Twitter when they go live for the Beckwith's announcement, as he just confirmed, 8:15 Central, so 9:15 Eastern. So be on the lookout. Probably starting around 9 or so to start, 9 o'clock Eastern time, wherever you are in the States, or, here, and we're listening to this. Be on the lookout around 9 o'clock Eastern time for that live stream to kind of start going up, or some updates from VR2 and updates from us at Rocket Top Insider and at RTI Recruiting as well. Hey guys, thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll be back later on this week to break down what all happened for Tennessee on National Signing Day, and also just talk about this class, because we talked about the early signing period class, but since then there's been rankings adjustments and just different things like that, different departures and guys who've been brought in on transfers and stuff for Tennessee. So we'll kind of break down the entire 2020 class for Tennessee, with the exception of probably Zach Evans, whether or not he's going to be in here or not. But we'll talk about that later on this week, so be on the lookout for that. Thank you all for listening. This has been our special 2020 National Signing Day preview for Tennessee football on the RTI and VR2 Recruiting Podcast.